Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking sports locally and nationally. Join the conversation on our social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go.
Instead of looking deep inside, every word I have to say, keep it simple.
Welcome to another edition of the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. I'm your host, Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, it's Padawan J.
Listen, guys, I know the NFL fans and players and coaches and front office executives are very frustrated with the refs, and understandably so, but it hasn't reached Bottlegate levels of frustration.
Yet. So we are definitely keeping our eye on that. And who better to talk some NFL action with you than your coach, my coach, the coach, Coach Duffy.
I mean, listen, Pat, I just want to say thank you for not completely obliterating, Danny Dimes here. He was able to, have that nice touchdown to Golden Tate, minus the the one special team touchdown and then the fumble. Yeah. That's a 21-14 game.
Yeah.
And the Pats are, on the backpedaling. But unfortunately, those touchdowns did happen, so they blew it out.
Yeah, there's so much to recap in this week's edition of the ODPH Sports Show. We got to just jump right into it. Join in the conversation on social media. You can find all our accounts on OchoDuroParlayHour.com. And remember to use the hashtag ODPH when you're talking with us, because we definitely want to talk to you about some sports, some pro wrestling, and all that comes with it. And we have to kick off this week's edition recapping the NFL week that was with our locks and leaps. Pad, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. Well, I'll start with my lock. For my lock, I chose the Baltimore Ravens to defeat the Cincinnati Bengals, which they did, narrowly by a final score of 23-17. Andy Dalton, 21 of 39 for 235 yards passing, no touchdowns, one interception. Lamar Jackson, 21 of 33 for 236 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions.
I have to agree with Pat on this one, because this was also my pick, as was Coach Duffy's. We all took the Ravens on this one. And dare I say, are we at the point, Lamar Jackson, is he the MVP? I posted this on our Facebook.
I saw that post, so my answer is right now, no.
Okay.
Because I like Deshaun Watson for that, but I think they're definitely 1 and 1A.
Sure.
But, I mean, yeah, Lamar Jackson's playing fantastic. What he's doing for this team right now, with not only his ability to run and throw, he's literally Michael Vick 2.0, but a much more upgraded model.
Sure.
Because his ability to stay, though, in the pocket and still find receivers was the one thing that Michael Vick just couldn't do.
No.
I mean, he could scramble and get yards and everything, but they always, there was always that receiver that might have gotten open had he just waited a half a second.
Yeah.
And Lamar Jackson's doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And he's finding them.
I mean, that's the one thing we all remember about Mike Vick. I mean, there was the Madden commercial when he was on the cover of Madden years ago, where you go down to Atlanta and you go through like the theme park ride where you're playing Michael Vick dodging every famous defender at the time. But like you said, he can run, he can pass. I mean, his rush, he led the Baltimore Ravens in rushing with 19 carries for 152 yards and one touchdown, averaged 8 yards a carry, and then his longest was 36 yards.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane to see what he's doing. I mean, he's setting records at that quarterback position.
Yeah.
Because for coming in and taking over from Joe Flacco, Jackson has really instilled some spark in that offense that's been sorely lacking the past couple seasons. And to give that dual threat of a truly mobile quarterback that is making plays and putting up points by himself. I mean, let alone Mark Ingram's on that team too. Obviously a serviceable running back, with 52 yards and one touchdown.
Having a little bit of a resurgence.
Yeah.
A little bit now. Yeah, you have to give him that. And definitely Cincinnati stepped up to challenge them. I mean, division games, hey, we always say no matter whatever the record is, division rivals always step up.
Well, and especially Baltimore came out, or not Baltimore, excuse me, Cincinnati came out and it was leading 7-0 at one point in the first quarter. And that's when I saw the score going, whoa, wait a minute. Baltimore was favored by like 15 points at one point.
Absolutely. So, I mean, this is kind of crazy to see. But Cincinnati definitely hung in there, which obviously without A.J. Green, their season has been abysmal.
Yeah.
Dare I say it's not what Coach's leap is when we get to that section. But Cincinnati definitely has lost its way.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, they're sitting at the bottom of the division of 0-6, which, how wild is this? I mean, we're going in the preview show. We were saying Pittsburgh and Cleveland are going to duke it out for first place. And here we are sitting, just at the end of week 6. Baltimore's in first place with 4-2 record. You've got Cleveland and Pittsburgh tied for second with 2-4.
I mean, try and say something nice about Cincinnati.
It's a great town.
Yeah.
I've been there.
I mean, that's all. But you can't say anything nice about the Bengals.
No.
I mean, this is bad football they're playing. I mean, obviously, I know that they were in this game against Baltimore, but I mean, what else can you say about this team? I mean, all facets of the game are just not clicking at all.
No.
From special teams, the Buffalo game is a perfect example of how poor their special teams can be, to their defense, which is suspect at best.
Yeah.
And then, obviously you've got you got Mixon, and you still got Bernard, and you still got Andy Dalton. But, without A.J. Green, I just find it hard to believe that without one playmaker on the outside that you still don't have a successful team. So, I mean, obviously this is the first coaching change. So,
yeah.
I mean, that could be something that's going on as well with a young coaching staff in there. But I just find it hard to believe that one loss of A.J. Green, one player, one wide receiver is what is really, because everybody else is still there.
Well, yeah, I mean, the offense is not the best. I mean, they're ahead of a couple of teams such as the Jets, Dolphins, Bears, Steelers, Redskins, and Titans for total offense. But the thing I think you got to look at is the defense. The defense is just god freaking awful. In terms of yards allowed, the defense is second to last, only ahead of the Miami Dolphins.
And that speaks volumes.
Uh-huh.
So Cincinnati, obviously, the season is looking to be a wash. At this stage, 0-6, it's
0-6. They got Jacksonville next week with Rams the week after. They got a bye week in week 9, and then they got Baltimore, Oakland, and Pittsburgh.
I mean, they're very much in the fight for Tua.
Yeah.
And I think that they would take that route. Unfortunately, I think Andy Dalton's run in Cincinnati is something that, if I was him and I was Cincinnati, something to move on from.
No, yeah, because that's the thing with Andy Dalton is he's always been serviceable. Can flashes of brilliance, but they're few and far between.
Right.
But it's not a guy you can depend on come crunch time or come playoff time.
No, definitely not.
They've been in the positions where he could have stepped up to do that.
Yeah.
And he just comes up short.
I mean, let's be honest. The only time he's ever stepped up in a postseason potential scenario was in Buffalo's, benefit.
Yes, which I truly thank him for. So I can say
yeah,
nothing.
you can't. You say no ill will. Over
I
there.
say nothing bad about Andy Dalton. He's my backup on my fantasy team, and he will remain that way behind Patrick Mahomes. But going into this, I mean, obviously Cincinnati, however they finish out the season, if they can start mustering some wins and really kind of find out what this team is going to be made of moving forward, is going to be the true question that they need to answer. Because at this stage, 0-6, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
Flipping the ball to the other side, the Ravens, and like I said, Lamar Jackson is the first player in the Super Bowl era to throw for over 200 yards and and run on the ground for over 150 in the same game.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
he's
sink that in for a second.
Listen, I certainly don't. I understand your argument for him being MVP.
Mm-hmm.
I just think for what he's doing versus what Deshaun Watson's doing is that although the Baltimore defense hasn't played great, it's still there and it's still decent enough to win games for them. I mean, literally, Houston, if Deshaun Watson isn't going and they take away Hopkins, that team is nothing without Watson being able to do something. Baltimore has every aspect of the game. So, I mean, if it comes down to MVP voting and Lamar Jackson wins, I'm not going to be surprised. I'm just saying, for me right now, my early favorite's Deshaun.
No, and that's definitely an honest answer. I mean, I'm not saying that you should crown him all right. Like, in my opinion, though, he is. Like I said, that stat, which I got from NFL.com, this was...
You can't argue with the numbers.
You can't argue with the numbers. And the numbers and wins. I mean, sure, they've lost a couple games, but they are still looking like a playoff caliber team. And
they look like the division winning team.
Yeah. I mean, taking a look at how the Central is, or the North, I should say, rather, they definitely look like the cream of the crop there.
I can say that if I was a team that had, to face them, I wouldn't want to play Lamar Jackson in a playoff game.
No way.
No.
Even after what happened with the Chargers last year, which was a horrid performance, that was a very different Chargers defense. I mean, even the Pats defense, I think, would have a tough time given the ability of what Lamar Jackson can do on the field.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's ask this. I mean, Coach, you obviously said Deshaun Watson is your MVP at this moment. Pat, who do you have as the MVP at this moment?
I honestly have no idea. Like, there's not one guy that's just, like, there are great performances, but it's still kind of early for me. Like, there's not one guy that's jumping out going, that's the guy.
Like I said, for me, I mean, Lamar Jackson is doing it right now. I mean, Mahomes has to be in that question. I heard on a couple different sports shows, Christian McCaffrey is actually in the conversation.
My God.
If you want to say for a long shot, I don't think he'll win it. But I mean, obviously, you look at the job he's doing carrying Carolina on his back right now.
I wonder the last time a non-quarterback even won MVP.
probably been a while. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah,
I would think so.
We'll have to check that in a
Yeah.
little bit.
I mean, but Baltimore, they're going to get some interesting tests coming up. They got the Seattle Seahawks this week.
That's a game.
In Seattle. They got a bye week in Week 8. They've got the Patriots coming out of the bye week. They've got the Bengals again in Week 10. Listen to this stretch. Houston, Rams, Niners. Oof.
Well, let's just, and even right now, let's just talk about their wins. Are the Dolphins against the Cardinals, against the Steelers. So, and that's without, any quarterback for the Steelers.
Right.
That was emergency quarterback.
That was an overtime game.
Yeah, so I think that one of these next two games, especially this game going to Seattle on the road, I think that's going to be the biggest tell because playing in Seattle can be very, very difficult.
That is extremely difficult.
So
that crowd
I think
will be ready for him.
I think if they can win that game, I would put them from just kind of like one of the elite teams to more of a upper echelon team.
Yeah.
Like you got the Patriots at the top of the pile.
Yeah.
Then you got Kansas City, and I put Houston in there, and Seattle. And then you got Baltimore. What was the Chargers? I don't know who even knows where they're falling right now.
Ooh.
And then Minnesota, I put back in that pile again, and San Francisco. So one of those teams can separate themselves and go to that second tier.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting thing to watch with Baltimore. Obviously they have all the tools right now, and they're playing at such a high level due to the quarterback play. And you would think about it, the start of the season, Lamar Jackson, we didn't really expect this much out of him, but we're getting that. To take it a flip to Pad and my leap, Teddy Bridgewater.
Having a resurgence.
Is he the real deal?
A resurgence.
What can you say about this?
I wasn't expecting this by any way, shape, or form.
I didn't think he was capable of it. I'll be the first one to tell you.
I didn't either. When Drew Brees went down, I'll be honest, I sat there going, it might be hard for the Saints to make the playoffs. And if Drew Brees was able to come back, I didn't think things had looked as good, and I figured he'd have to go on the run of all runs and run the table to make it into the playoffs.
But he's doing a heck of a job. The Saints were winners 13-6 over Jacksonville. Yep. Pat, you got that stat line?
Sure. Teddy Bridgewater, 24 of 36 for 240 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Gardner Minshew II, a.k.a. Uncle Rico, 14 of 29 for 163 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception.
Coach, your thoughts?
Yeah, from what I'm seeing from this New Orleans team and what's kind of fun is before when they had Drew Brees, it was such a reliance on him to score touchdowns. New Orleans, they had to score 30 to win.
I'll say Brees had to be in the conversation for breaking the single season yard passing record every year.
Yeah, it had to be. If New Orleans doesn't put up 30, if you can hold them under 30, you can beat them. So now it's actually kind of really fun to see them winning these games, 13-6 and, maybe 14, 21 or 22, these lower scoring games where they're winning ugly and relying on their defense that, for so long was always the issue with the Saints.
Right.
That was always the problem. Just they didn't have enough on the other side of the ball to help, the offense keep teams from scoring. But now they're winning these games, and 13-6 is not if I said 13-6, you would not think New Orleans Saints won this game.
No,
not by any means. But to see that they're winning this by defense too.
Yeah,
right.
That's
and
the
ugly,
scariest
and
thing.
ugly.
That New Orleans has finally developed a defense. We have not really seen this since Greg Williams was defensive coordinator.
Right.
Way back when.
Yeah, that was probably their last good string of defense, and they had some really good players then too.
Yeah, obviously. And that's when they had Jonathan Vilma down there.
Right.
And he was such a key force in that defense. To see what they're doing now, though, it's truly remarkable. And especially they were going up against a Jacksonville team that is no slouch on the defensive side of the ball either.
No.
Yeah, even without Ramsey, they're still very good defensively.
Then they're going to show up every game. And to see Bridgewater winning these games is really a comforting feeling if you're a Saints fan. Because with Drew Brees... And let's face it, he's up against Father Time. We've talked about this numerous times.
Yeah.
If Bridgewater is going to be the guy they're going to have to re-sign next season, because I believe he's a free agent after the end of this year.
Yeah, I think it was only because he almost was in Miami.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're going to definitely have to back up the Brinks truck to keep him locked in, because if he keeps winning, and obviously when Drew comes back, whenever he does,
right,
they have to answer that question at quarterback. Do you keep the hot hand, or do you go back to Drew Brees? I
think that's not even an argument. You go back to Drew Brees. This isn't like, Nick Foles and Minshew, or Kyle Allen and Cam Newton.
I know it's
Drew
not.
freaking Brees, man.
I know it's not, and I agree, but there is some argument to be made.
Sure.
There is some argument. That's my point with
when
this.
you go 4-0 as a backup quarterback and winning, listen, I mean, Giants fan, back in the day when Phil Simms went down, in comes the backup quarterback, Jeff Hostetler, and they go on a run. And, I mean, Phil Simms got healthy, towards the end of that season, could have potentially played. And instead, they opted to keep Hostetler in. And same thing with Philadelphia with Carson Wentz. He could have potentially played in the Super Bowl, but they kept riding Nick Foles. So it's like, you got to find that position. But the thing is, and the difference between, a Phil Simms situation and, Carson Wentz situation is this is a two-time MVP, Super Bowl winning quarterback that's still playing at a high elite level.
Who's like top 3 in most, if not every, offensive passing category.
I agree, but I'm just making the argument's sake.
Sure.
That you can have that debate. It's not going to be a long one.
That's why we do a podcast to debate these things. So, I mean, I understand why, you would think that because you got to ride the hot hand. I mean, if you have a goalie go down in hockey and your backup goalie's riding hot, you're not going to all of a sudden switch it up and put the starter back in just because, when the backup's riding hot because you ride the hot hand. It's just the difference is this team is built and based around Drew Brees. And having to put in Teddy Bridgewater goes to show that Sean Payton actually is an elite coach and not just relying on, for so long the narrative has been, Sean Payton doesn't need to worry about anything because he has Drew Brees. But now he's going and showing you that he knows his X and O's and that he actually is an elite coach, that, he doesn't need Drew Brees to go out and win games, that they can win games. So, hats off to him and everything. But, obviously he's going to go with his guy, which is Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at it. The only loss that Bridgewater technically is on the hook for is Week 2 against the Rams, where he got thrown in the first 3 minutes of the game.
That loss doesn't even go on him anyway.
And that's against the Rams, where the week leading, Breeze would have got all the first team reps. He would have done all the prep and all of this. And yeah, sure, Bridgewater might have been in the film session room, but there's a difference between knowing you're going to start and going, I'm going to be the guy holding the clipboard on Sunday and rooting my team on.
Correct.
Now that he's been the guy, getting the first team reps and practicing with the guys and this and that, undefeated.
And they still, they still have Michael Thomas. They still have Alvin Kamara and Murray, who is, talk about another running back that, is having a resurgence because here he comes in from Minnesota to fill in the void that Ingram left when he went to Baltimore. And Murray is, carrying the ball and out-touching Kamara in the run game. Who would have ever thought that? When we had our fantasy draft, Ken, I had the opportunity to take Murray, and I was like, I'm not going to touch him because I've seen the shtick. I've seen his Minnesota days. I've seen the, what he can do when he is given the ball. And I thought there was no way he's going to out-touch Kamara. And he's playing great.
Yeah, he's playing phenomenal. I mean, the Saints have such a well-oiled machine down there in New Orleans. And Sean Payton, in my opinion, is the second best coach in the NFL behind Belichick.
Sure.
I don't even think there's a debate to be had for who's number 2. Payton has made magic happen here with Bridgewater, and especially they finally have the defense. I mean, before, obviously, him and Drew Brees have been that Tom Brady, Belichick elite quarterback.
Right.
I mean, when you have that dynamic duo going, a lot of good things happen. So obviously with Brees going down, Payton has really shown his coaching skills and gotten Bridgewater to play at an elite level. Now, is he going to be the franchise moving forward? It's a question they're going to have to answer in the offseason.
Yeah.
I think that if this is the situation, I mean, obviously Father Time is not on Drew Brees' side. I don't see, unless you want to start from scratch. I mean, think of in Sean Payton's terms. You still have your core. Michael Thomas is signed for a long time. Kamara is signed. I'm pretty sure had us an extension signed. So you have your core nucleus there that Bridgewater plays well with. You have to go with that. You can't just go and say, all right, we're just going to plug and play. You got to go with the guy that knows the system.
I think it's a comforting thing for the Saints front office that, if Drew Brees retires in the offseason this year, next year, whatever year it is, if they lock up Bridgewater and they have him there going, all right, listen, whenever that happens, that we got to cross that bridge. If Drew Brees is no longer here, he's not walking into that locker room, we know what we got.
Exactly. I think they do need to lock him up, and obviously Sean Payton and company will take care of that in the offseason. 5-1 is a good thing to be in the NFC South.
Yeah.
As for the Jags, 2-4, but they still have Minshew Mania, so what can you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's just a tough position for Jacksonville. I mean, out goes Nick Foles, who he signed in the offseason week 1, and in comes an untested Gunnar Minshew, and obviously there's a market out there for quarterbacks, and they feel comfortable with Minshew, and it's just been a string of bad luck that they've had games that have been against good opponents in his really his first run as a first-string quarterback. I think he's going to be okay.
I think he's going to be adequate.
Yeah.
I don't think adequate, I think is a good way. I don't think he's going to end up, if he left Jacksonville or if Nick Foles retired, I don't think Jacksonville is going to say, all right, we're satisfied with the quarterback position. But I definitely think he could be the, a Jason Garrett style, long-term backup on a team and fill in and actually not miss a beat.
He could be the filler until they get somebody that they have a little more faith in.
You know who would love to have him? Either Washington or Miami.
I mean, Washington or Miami would take either of any of us at quarterback at this point.
But, Pat, why don't you introduce that leap?
Holy cow. Well, it wasn't my leap. It was Coach Duffy's leap.
That's right. But how did you term it off air as we were discussing?
It was the Tua tank. Or something like I forget what I said. But no, Coach Duffy, of course, chose the Miami Dolphins to defeat the Washington Redskins, which they almost did. One would say they weren't going for two at the end of the game. They were going for Tua.
Now
that's
well done.
That's what he was going for.
Good,
that's what he was talking about off air.
Well done.
Yep. So Washington Redskins defeated the Miami Dolphins by the final score of 17-16.
That was brilliant, Pat.
Case Keenum went 13 of 25 for 166 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 12 of 18 for 132 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. Josh Rosen also saw some action with 15 of 25, 85 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
And sacked 5 times painfully.
Ow.
And hit a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what can really you say? And I'm going to be positive for everybody. I'm not going to try and beat these teams up because they're doing it enough themselves.
I'm just going to say this. Even the folks working at the stadium down in Miami knew how bad this was going to be. I read on game day that normally, when anyone who's been to an NFL game knows, parking can be a little expensive at NFL games. They were not charging for parking at this game on Sunday.
Well, I mean, listen, Miami's having a hell of a tailgate. Their tailgates might rival that of the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
But in a very adult-centered way.
Very, very different.
If you can look it up. Yeah, I'm not going to go Google it. But, yeah, what can you say? I mean, obviously, the gutsy call to go for 2, whether that was ownership, wink, wink, nod, nod, making that call, or that was, actual, we're going to go for the win here.
Right.
It was a gutsy call. I mean, at the end of the day, you're playing for the win. You're at home. He had it in his hands and dropped it. So, obviously, Drake had the opportunity to catch the 2-point conversion, but missed it. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh Rosen, throw your name in the hat and pick whoever's going to be the starting quarterback next week.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I mean, Rosen wasn't necessarily playing bad. It's just the fact that he was getting popped in the mouth so much. The offense wasn't moving. And then on the flip side of it, in comes Washington, new head coach with Bill Callahan. He said, we're going to go old school football. We are going to run, which they did. Adrian Peterson had a tremendous day showing that he still has it, trying to eat at that debt a little bit and trying to make those extra bonuses that he might have on his contract. I mean, 118 yards from him is a great day. I mean, along at 25, what else can you ask of a senior running back like that?
Yeah.
This had to be one of the ugliest games I watched. I actually was at an establishment in town and watching all the games, and I actually was watching this one because the Bills were off.
I heard that it took Red Zone 36 actual physical minutes till they broadcasted this game.
Yeah,
wow.
36 minutes till they were actually on Red Zone.
Wow.
I'm trying to find a good way to sugarcoat it, but I don't think I can. This was brutal. Both teams are bad. I mean, listen, stats are stats. You can at me whatever you want on OD Parlay Hour. This was an awful game. And Miami, you're tanking for Tua. Go for Tua. I mean, however you want to hashtag it up, congratulations. You showed it.
It's almost embarrassing, though, in this way because, I don't think Tua he's good, but I don't think he's going to be a franchise-changing quarterback at all.
Let me ask you this. All right, when was the last time Alabama produced an elite-level quarterback?
It's been years.
Yeah.
It's been years, if ever.
That's why, I was watching
Joe
something.
Namath?
Yeah, I was watching something on college football, and they said that, when Jalen Hurts got recruited to Alabama, it was the prize-winning quarterback position of Alabama. I'm like, what? They literally had fill in the blank starting at quarterback for a national championship run.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they had the kid that is the backup in Oakland right now who was in Buffalo. or Cincinnati, A.J. McCarron.
Yep.
Actually, he's in Houston now. He was the last quarterback that you could say was a good quarterback, and he only started because the starter that was ahead of him left to go to Florida.
Yep.
Yeah, Driscoll.
Yeah, Driscoll went.
So, I mean, you talk about, Alabama quarterbacks, and it's like, Tua came in as a freshman, won a national championship game after not starting all year, but I think they let the wrong guy go.
Yeah.
Because Jalen, I know this is college right now that we're talking about, but to me, Jalen Hurts in that Oklahoma system is showing me the same thing that Kyler Murray did the year before. And he has the same stat line as Murray did, and they've played better opponents at this point, Oklahoma, this year than they did last year. So if you're meaning to tell me that Tua is going to be the guy that you take, if I'm a team, I'm hoping Jalen Hurts falls to me at 2 or 3.
Whoever ends up getting the number 1 overall pick, Miami, Cincinnati, Washington, whoever it ends up being, you got to do your homework, and you got to do some extra credit homework on this one, because way too often have we seen in the NFL where you got a guy coming out of college going, this guy's going to be great, he's going to be a star, he's going to be a Pro Bowl or Super Bowl winner, like list the accolades, and then he comes out and takes an absolute dump on the field and sucks. Could Tua do that? Maybe. Could he be great? Who's to say? But you got to do your homework on this, because you don't want to set yourself back however many years it is just tanking for one player, because I'm looking at the stats. They're second to last in total offense, only ahead of the New York Jets, and I'll asterisk that one.
The starting quarterback was gone for 4 games.
It's by 71 yards, and the starting quarterback for the Jets was gone for 4 games.
And then you saw what he does when he comes back.
Yeah, and then you flip it to defense. They're last in total defense.
I mean, the stat that you gave before the season started, that their calendar only had 1 player left from what was initially, their season football calendar. It's embarrassing. I mean, I understand, in basketball that, teams will tank for a number 1 pick, but it's also not just for the number 1 pick. It's just a different entity at the NBA, because players in the NBA, they have these grueling 82-game seasons that for them, in their mind, they want to be in a place and a location that is ideal for them, because they're spending, almost 200 days there. In the NFL, outside of training camp, you're there for 17 weeks.
Right.
And if you make the playoffs, then you're gone.
Well, and especially the thing with the NBA is you're playing a game in Houston one night, and then you're traveling up to Portland and playing another game, whereas with the NFL, you're playing a game in Miami. You fly back home. You got a couple of days of rest. And then come Friday, you got to fly out to Detroit. And then you play the game. And then you come back home on Monday and rest a few days. Whereas, like you said, with the NBA, you're traveling almost God knows how many days a year.
Well, and not only that, so it's like if you're a free agent and you got the potential to go to Miami or Boston, what looks more attractive to you? The fact that you're going to be on South Beach for 42 games of the year and living there 365, or going to Boston and being there for 365 days a year? And it's a different beast in the NFL, because, and the salary cap is different too. So in the NBA, you almost have to tank for these smaller markets to be able to attract teams. But in the NFL, with the way that contracts go and salary cap and everything, everywhere is a destination in the NFL.
Yeah, the parity in the NFL gives every team a fair shot.
For any free agent.
Exactly. It's hard to compare that to the NBA.
Right.
Like you're touching on, Coach.
So to tank for Tua, it's like, it's embarrassing for the NFL to have this happen. That's just the way that I feel on it.
No, I fully agree with you, because this game, as we were talking about last week, this was a tank game.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no sugarcoating about it. This is how it is. So for Miami, this was awful. And obviously your franchise has got some work to do for next year.
And it's really embarrassing if the rumors are true, what ownership said about making sure that they lost this game.
Yeah.
That is even more embarrassing.
If that's true.
If it's true.
There's a lot of allegedly going around about that.
But it was reported by some, upper, tier reporters that those things were said to the coaching staff to make sure that they came out of this game with an L as close as possible to what they could get. Because if they would have won, they would have won. Ultimately, they weren't completely throwing the game, but ownership had put a nugget in the ear. And that's very scary if I'm Goodell.
Yeah, it's very scary if it is true. Yeah. And I will say, if it is true, I would imagine Goodell and company are going to fully investigate that
Oh,
And
for sure. You have to.
You're going to see, as they say, the death sentence come down.
So you thought it was bad with what they hit the Patriots with Spygate and all that?
Forget about it.
Yeah, oh, my God.
Like, I'm not saying Miami would lose their franchise by any stretch, but you will see heads rolling like it's Game of Thrones.
For sure. Yeah, some sort of loss of probably draft picks would be my guess.
Oh, without...
Yeah.
But loss of draft picks and max fines on everybody.
Yeah.
You will have a precedent set that no team will ever approach again, if this is true. And like we say, we are saying allegedly a lot because we are still trying to get some confirmations.
Right.
But if this turns out to be true, Miami is in more trouble than you can fully imagine.
Until after the draft next year when they get to it.
I was because I'm looking at their schedule the rest of the year, and unless some of their fans show up to the visiting team's hotel and start blaring music at 3 a.m, I don't see how they're going to pick up a win this year.
No, I mean the only game they have Cincinnati in Week 16.
Maybe,
that is,
but that's a maybe at best.
But that's a maybe at best. Yeah, no, I get it. I mean,
because that's a home game.
That's
Miami.
a home game. Yeah, I mean, listen, they've got obviously the rest of their slate against the NFC East, which they end their season at New England. So I mean, depending on where New England is, do they throw Tom Brady into the fold or do they sit some of those guys?
Miami playing in Foxborough, Massachusetts at the end of December.
And I get it, but I'm just saying,
snow on the ground.
New England doesn't necessarily have the greatest backup of quarterbacks. So if maybe Brady sits the entire game, which I know is not a Belichick way, but given the fact that Miami might be 0-15 or 0-16 going into this,
he played till halftime.
Let me break this down for you. There is no chance in hell, like Vince McMahon would say, that Belichick would even fathom the notion of sitting Brady if he thought for just 1 millisecond that they would be the one team Miami beats all season.
Sure.
Let's not forget whatever game it was. Belichick pulled Brady from the game, put the backup in. The backup threw one pick six. He put Brady right back in.
Right. Well, I'm just listen. I mean, this is a real talk here because this isn't them going into an undefeated season against a really hot New York Giants team that are fighting their way to the Super Bowl and Bill Belichick saying, "All right, you think that you're going to take us? We're going to give you our all." This isn't that. This is an 0-15 team that stuff is down right now. Heads are down. People are desperate, fighting for jobs. Somebody might do something stupid in Miami and roll up on Tom Brady's ankle on accident, and then there goes the playoffs. So if I'm the Patriot organization, I'm looking at that game and saying, maybe we should pull the plug on them a little bit.
It'll be very interesting to see.
Right.
To say the least of what the future holds for Miami. But dare I say,
doom and gloom is the response.
Very happy I'm not a Miami fan by any which way, shape, or form.
You have no love lost for Miami.
I have no love lost, but this is like an extreme level. Like I didn't even think I could reach.
Yeah.
So much to discuss. We're going to keep the conversation going with the NFL after we take a quick break. So definitely hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. Join in that conversation. We'll be right back.
These days, comic book stories are more mainstream than ever. Unfortunately, not everybody has the means to be able to consume all of this greatness well. If you were to join me, Brian Wayne, on the Cheers to Comics podcast, I will help guide you through the rabbit hole that is comic books. Whether you're a brand new reader that just walked out of the latest blockbuster summer Marvel movie event and just have to know the source material, or you're an old dog and just want to get a different perspective from another reader, this is the podcast for you. And when I say comic book podcast, this is a comic book podcast. No filler material. I save all of the movie talk and all of the stuff outside of the illustrated, written world of comic books for all of the other podcasts out there. This is for comic book junkies and aspiring comic book junkies only. So tune in with me, Brian Wayne, 3 times a week. We'll be going over dozens and dozens of books in an overviewed fashion, not necessarily a review manner. But beyond that, I hype you up every week on the books coming out on the next week coming, as well as a bonus episode. And that could be anything from me dedicating an entire episode to a single story arc, or potentially even a kick-ass interview with a badass comic book creator. So if any or all of that tickles your little fancies, join me Brian Wayne, and the rest of Slurred Nation on the Cheers to Comic podcast as I kick back drinks and drop all types of comic book knowledge. Cheers.
Hey, this is Brian Wolf from Fair City Fire. You are listening to ODPH, the greatest podcast in Binghamton.
Woo!
Hot lips touching, cool thighs feeling, shawty running up, her spine spinning, long day to a long night, but I'm not stopping till I get it.
Coming back for some more NFL talk on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Now, I called this game as a bonus leap last week, and there was a lot more controversy going on with it, and it kind of ties into what happened Monday night as well. This was the New York Jets winning over the Dallas Cowboys 24-22.
Asterisk, minus Amari Cooper, minus Randall Cobb, and 2 or 3 starting tackles, which not excusing them, but didn't have their starting
It did
offense.
factor in, and there was also the returning Sam Darnold to the lineup after a battle of mono. But going into the stat line pad, what you got?
Yeah, so the New York Jets defeated the Dallas Cowboys by a final score of 24-22. Dak Prescott, 28 of 40 for 277 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Sam Darnold, 23 of 32 for 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception.
So going in with this, Coach, what was your takeaway from the game?
I mean, my takeaway was that final drive.
Yeah.
And
This is
just
what I want to talk about.
5 straight penalties via offense and defense. I mean, that was uncanny. I mean, first off, the 5 straight were all on the Jets.
Yeah.
Then 2 of them were against the Cowboys. I mean, flat. And I know that going into the year they had talked about not trying to eat the flags, but trying necessarily not to call so many of them. And some of these pass interference calls
Atrocious.
some of them were really bad. I mean, the ball was getting there at the same time that the wide receiver was hit, and they threw a flag, and it's like, all right, sometimes you just got to eat those. And I know, unfortunately, what happened in New Orleans is really affecting what the referees are seeing, because now they don't want to be the one that missed that pass interference call that can make or break the game. So they're willing to throw the flag more than what they should be.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where a game shouldn't come down to being factored in like this. But this was one of many games over the weekend that was impacted by refereeing calls. Now,
Sure.
I understand you have to make a decision right there on the field.
Sure.
But some of these calls, and especially during that last drive when Dallas was coming down the field.
I mean, it was all within the red zone.
Yeah.
I believe that Dallas was 3rd and 27 and had an incomplete pass that became a automatic first down. It's like, oh my Lanta.
Yeah, this just made no sense watching at home because some of the calls, and granted, I'm playing armchair quarterback.
Sure.
But some of those calls, you can't make that call.
Right. You can't. You can't.
No, there's no rhyme or reason to it because they weren't blatant, and there's contact on every play going in there.
Right.
But to call it 5 straight on the Jets, which you basically let Dallas come right down the field.
The 3rd and 27 one, while it was, I mean, the problem is that it was pass interference because he did grab his arm. I believe that was on Ezekiel Elliott when he ran that fly route. I mean, he grabbed his arm. It was for a brief moment, but it's pass interference.
It's still pass interference.
Yeah.
And so when you have to factor that into play, it just becomes a different element to the game, which it shouldn't come down to.
Well, then it becomes frustrating from a fan standpoint. I mean, I can't put my shoes as a player and understand what they were probably going through. But, I mean, as a fan, watching the game, I'm just like, I'm sitting here and I'm watching, another flag. Another flag. Yeah. Oh, my God, another flag. Like, that's my response to the game.
It turned into a running joke.
Yeah.
So the fact that these calls were happening, I mean, almost it was like one of those like Buffalo Wild Wing commercials.
Oh, for sure.
Where you see like the sprinkler system come up and, okay, we're going to overtime. And
we're extending the game.
Yeah, it seemed like one of those. So you have to sit there and watch it. And it's like, to make those calls, and especially with how important every game is. I mean, that's the one great thing about the NFL. Every game matters.
Well, and that's what,
for the most part,
made it so funny about them having pass interference calls be reviewable.
Yeah.
One's been reversed.
Yeah, of all of them.
Of, I think, like 35.
Yes, I know it was over 30.
It's over 30.
But just the fact that one has been reversed, I think, tells you enough of the story.
Right. Oh, yes, it does.
So how can you have an argument about it? But let alone with Dallas playing to the level of their opponent, which they did. And you can say whatever you want. I know they started out hot, and every Cowboy fan in the world was going Super Bowl.
Right. Oh, yes, they were.
And Humble Pie came back. Now, granted, like Pat said, they were missing some players in the game. Sure, but you still had Ezekiel Elliott.
Yep.
You still had Dak Prescott, Mr. $40 million.
And you still had, Jason Witten.
Yeah. You had the timeless wonder.
Yeah, the out-of-retirement Jason Witten.
Yeah, who obviously didn't come up with the game-winning shot at the end there, but enough said about that.
Right, yeah.
But to look at this game and say, okay, what are we talking about? We're not talking about how the Jets stepped up and Sam Darnold actually looked like a credible quarterback for the first time.
Played very well.
In a long time, mono excluded. And Le'Veon Bell, hey, thanks for showing up. 50 yards with a touchdown.
Oh, wake up.
Yeah. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the officiating and questionable calls. And then Pat, you want to jump in on something?
No, yeah, so it's funny. Since I found a stat, since 1991, NFL teams are 90-1 when they win time of possession, total yards, turnovers, and pick up 25 first downs and convert at least 10 or more third down attempts. That one loss, Dallas on Sunday.
That's fantastic.
The other one I saw, and this was an interesting point, Kevin Seifert from ESPN brought up that people are complaining about the refs with this game, and then obviously the Monday night game with Green Bay and Detroit. That there was an idea the coaches had that a lot of the coaches were behind in terms of a sky judge, someone that could kind of like radio down and go, "Hey, you should look at this. Hey, this isn't what this is." But the NFL didn't want to give somebody that much power.
Right?
Didn't think it was feasible. Might be worth a relook.
They were talking about adding that sky cam in the game, that they could, if they miss something, that referee has the sky cam, the ability to see over the entire play and break it down,
which would have come in handy with the Green Bay Detroit game last night, because Lord, something about Green Bay and referees who say one no, the other one yes. Went to there was that I think it was Detroit went to go for a touchdown. The one ref said touchdown, the other one said nope. The one side you couldn't really tell it. I'll be honest, from the other side you couldn't really tell, but that overhead shot gave you a perfect view.
I think my problem is, personally, and what I miss is the old, and talking specifically about pass interference here, I miss the old college rule that it was the spot of the foul and not the for automatic first down, because now, and not just that 15 yards. So now it makes it on these deep routes. If you got burned, you saw it in the Pats Giants game where Janoris Jenkins got absolutely obliterated on a route by Edelman and literally tried to tackle him. Why did he do that, you say? Because it would have only been a 15-yard foul instead of at the goal line, which is where he ended up catching that pass for a touchdown. So it's like, why not make maybe the defensive backs and maybe even the wide receivers, that if they know that, instead of it just being a 10-yard penalty on the offense, maybe it's a loss of down.
Yeah.
And now you make it, now it's hands-free. Now it's more open and not so much grabbing and everything.
Right, but when you're causing issues like this that are costing games,
sure,
this is where the league needs to step in. We talked about a little bit about Green Bay getting the win over Detroit 23-22 on Monday night, and there was that questionable call about hands to the face. The illegal hands with Trey Fowler, which I'm reading now. Bleacher Report is running a story saying NFL admits officiating errors. Executive VP Troy Vincent said Monday Night Football refs made wrong call on Lions Trey Flowers' second illegal hands to the face penalty from Bleacher Report.
Yeah.
This is breaking now.
Well, just think about the fact that, all right, so if it's the spot of the foul instead of the instead of the 15-yard automatic first down in that Dallas Jets game, for example, that Ezekiel Elliott play, now they're looking at 4th and 9 instead of 1st and 10. And the complexion of that game completely changes.
Everything flips.
Yeah.
So now maybe instead of 5 pass interference calls, we only get 3 in a row.
It's something that they need to address. Obviously, with looking at everything that happened over the weekend, even there was the questionable Jarvis Landry pick they said he did against Seattle.
Oh, right.
Cleveland. That changed the complexity of that game too. When the referees are making the calls, and I understand it's very easy for us to sit back and watch and make these calls, but there has to be a better way to get better officiating on the field to let the game dictate itself.
Oh, I think outside of a home plate umpire, the NFL has the most difficulty most difficult time officiating.
Yeah.
Because these are grown men
Sure.
in full equipment,
Sure.
literally moving at 15 to 20 miles per hour on any given play.
Sure.
At any given moment. And they're running across you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, think about the head judge that has to line up right where the middle linebacker does.
Yeah.
And then the back referee that lines up 10 yards by the tailback on some plays. I mean, it is a no-win situation for where you put them because it is all dangerous for those two officials.
And especially you get these guys who, you got these referees who, they're obviously in great shape and they're in great physical form. But you got to get these guys who aren't athletes like some of these players on the field trying to keep up with guys who can run absurdly fast speeds. Like, I'm sorry, like, the guy goes out of bounds and I'm chugging behind this guy. I might not see the guy because I'll be honest, if I got a guy, like Deshaun Jackson or Julian Edelman who can outrun me at the blink of an eye.
All right.
It's going to be hard for me to make a call if they're 15, 20 yards ahead of me.
But that's also where the problem, though, is with the overruling judge that, so what is going to happen? I mean, it's a no-win because, all right, so he sees something on a play. So what is he going to do? Buzzer down, and say, hey, you missed a holding call on a cornerback on the opposite side?
Holding happens every series.
It's just like, that's going to really kill and hamper the game even more.
It's just going to be a situation that moving forward with the season, the NFL really needs to work with their officials about making the best judgment possible in the situation of the moment, which, like I say, it's easy for us to sit here and critique.
Right.
But there has to be some translation on the field because we gave you 3 examples this weekend of how games were changed because of atrocious calls.
Well, think about the crown rule.
Yeah.
And how that has evolved from week 1 of the preseason last year to... Has that even been called this year?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I mean, so that has gone and since passed. So it's like, I know, and you can't get rid of pass interference. There needs to be some sort of definition. Oh, another perfect example, landing on the quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that literally is open to interpretation by any given official. It's those inconsistencies that give it a problem because, you might have a Bills-Jets game where, all of a sudden Josh Allen gets absolutely landed on by a 300-pound defensive tackle. Mm-hmm. And, this is a division game, huge rivalry. They don't call it. But then all of a sudden you have Minnesota playing the Chargers, and the same thing happened to Kirk Cousins, and then it's a flag.
The consistency issue is probably the biggest factor in all this.
Right.
You have to call it equal for all games and all plays, which I understand they are trying to do, and I keep drilling this point home. I understand it's a human error, but when do you have to start saying, how do you fix the human error?
Right.
That's where the line has to be made because, like we said, big games this season that have been now costed 2 teams wins.
Yep.
Which could have playoff implications. I mean, I think I was reading the stat, and I can't remember where I was. If Detroit had won that game, which, I mean, obviously you can argue they were on pace to win, but then again, you give Aaron Rodgers how many chances in the fourth quarter?
You can't kick field goals against Green Bay. Dallas showed you that.
I don't count Aaron Rodgers out unless he's got his butt up against his own end zone.
Exactly. And I don't even count him out then.
Yeah,
this is one of those situations where, like, Detroit, if they had won, would have been first place in the division. Now they're in last because of a tie.
Yeah.
Right. It's one of those factors that this could have a playoff implication.
And this is a good Detroit team that arguably should be in the running for a playoff position.
Yeah, the job Matt Patricia has done there, you have to applaud so far. I mean, they look like a different team than we've seen in years past, which applaud them about that. But this could also cost them a playoff shot. Same thing with Dallas, which say what you will about the Cowboys.
And say what you will about that terrible NFC East.
Yeah, exactly. They might be outside looking in by the time it's all said and done.
The Giants are 1 game back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the Messiah is carrying the team right there. I mean,
wrap your head around that real quick.
The first place team in the NFC East is currently tied, Philadelphia and Dallas. They both have a win percentage of 500.
That's by default, by the way.
Yeah.
Somebody has to win the division.
Yeah, which, I mean, we don't know yet. I mean, it's going to come down to something. Like, somebody's going to crown.
That's what it is. It's either division record or conference record because other than that, they've got identical home record, identical away record. Dallas has got one more divisional win, but they and then the conference record's almost like that.
It's real bad. It's real bad.
I can see this coming down to points scored total and like breaking down.
Oh, it's so bad right now.
It could be, but this is where, like I say, another situation where wins and losses matter so much.
Sure.
And this is how the ref.
Well, the Jets win that. The Dallas wins that game. They're first place right now, a game up.
Yeah. I mean, this is a huge factor going for them. So this is where, to wrap up the segment about it, though, this is where the NFL needs to come together and figure out,
Come
okay,
together.
overplays on the games. Thank you very much. Karaoke is done here. Yeah. But the point is about it, though, they need to come together and they need to figure out a standard in practice moving forward. That everything's just, it's clear cut. You can't argue about it. This is how it is. If it's not this, it's not. You can't call it.
The first step was giving the referees full-time jobs. Mm-hmm. That was step one. Now, what's step two?
Well, they're obviously going to put their heads together and try and figure something out because they can't take another couple weeks of this. It's just going to start to look uglier than it already is.
It's brutal.
But what I fear, what they really need to do is I don't know who you got to get. Former officials, former head coaches, whatever it is, they got to get a crew together, sit down, hash this out, and figure out what you got to do. And the only way that's going to happen is if something like what we saw on Sunday with these missed calls and these blown calls that are egregious and just bad and just not there, phantom calls, happens in the Super Bowl.
It comes down to the playoffs. I think that's where it's going to strike first. Super Bowl could be even more devastating.
Well, look what happened. Again, back to New Orleans. We thought, all right, make pass interference reviewable. And that still hasn't changed anything. So, it's like, all right, we make the change. And it's almost like the NFL just says, all right, we hear you, pass interference will be reviewable, but we're never going to give you one.
Well, to be fair, though, I haven't, at least in my viewing, I haven't seen anything near as close as what we saw in New Orleans last year in the playoffs.
Well,
there's been stuff that,
sure,
that depending on who you are and depending on what team you're playing for, you can look at that and go, oh, that's a clear pass interference. That's clearly not. But then you go and look at it and you go, maybe not.
Like you say, you have to make a judgment call right on the field.
Yeah.
But this is where the question is it going to come down to more eyes being involved? Are we going to have to start dragging the games out longer to review calls? And is it going to come down to a situation where the commissioner and company in New York are going to have to sit there and watch a play and make a call and be the somewhat Supreme Court overruling the officials on the field?
I think that's what you might have to do because I know Major League Baseball does that. When they go to their reviews, they put on the headset and they're talking to somebody at Major League Baseball headquarters in New York who's looking at the play, and NFL is much the same way. NFL, they've got all the camera access, and with Major League Baseball, they've got both team broadcast feeds, and somebody in New York is looking at it going, okay, this is what it is. I think that's what you got to do because you got a ref who might be caught up in the heat of the moment or whatever it is, emotions might play into it, and they might make a call one way or the other. But if you got somebody who's sitting in New York who's not in the middle of all this and just kind of sitting there doing their job, that's where you might start getting some better calls.
This is a highly debatable topic right now. So definitely hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. What is your definition of how this can get fixed? I want to know. What do you see being the way to fix the bad officiating? There has to be a way, because if this keeps snowballing like the direction it did this weekend, can you only imagine how we get to games in December and the playoffs? I mean, these could be playoff teams on the line. This could be draft picks that they're going to lose or make shift. I mean, everything could get shifted all over the place.
Just think if Detroit goes on not to, because of that tie and this loss, not to make the playoffs.
Yeah, you saw what happened with a simple pass interference call last year against New Orleans. What if it's multiple teams getting affected now? That's the question I pose. So hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. Join in the conversation. What do you think would be the best way to fix the officiating problem in the NFL? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's Kyle.
And Nick.
And we're from Dem Fancy Dinosaurs,
a weekly comedy podcast revolving around movies, TV shows, and pop culture.
We release a new episode every Thursday.
And you can find us on Apple Podcasts?
Why did you say that like a question?
I don't know.
Okay, anyway, yes, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any of the podcatchers.
Or you can look up www.demfancydinosaurs.com.
Thanks, guys. Stay fancy.
And enjoy the rest of the show.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Toy, local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
We knew right where we'd be, floating on the airwaves, you see. It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward and no steps back. We knew right where we'd be.
time to run the ropes on this edition of the ODPH podcast, giving you some wrestling recap of everything that's been going on. We are talking some spoilers if you're not caught up. But dare I say, the biggest news of the weekend had to be the WWE draft.
Big week.
Yeah.
Big week. So let me ask the panel, what is your thoughts about the draft?
It's entirely unnecessary. I get why they do it, and I get it's to separate the superstars and nobody's crossing over anymore. But it was a joke. It was completely unnecessary, and from bringing in the celebrities or personalities from the various networks was completely forced and not believable in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, for sure.
To the war rooms, which the one from Monday Night Raw, because I didn't watch SmackDown, where the one computer screen was on a video of a peacock the entire time.
Yeah, I thought the draft rooms were completely just utterly stupid, unnecessary.
Yeah.
I have a friend who is a non-wrestling guy, and he was texting me, and he was like, why is Troy Aikman and Joe Buck on SmackDown right now?
Yeah.
And I was like, they're breaking down draft analysis. And he goes, what do they know about wrestling?
Yeah, exactly.
And I go, I don't know. I don't even like to hear their color commentary and play-by-play, so I certainly don't want to see them on my wrestling screen.
I fully agree.
I'll say the only one that, to me, seemed semi-believable and not even fully believable was when they brought in Jim Cramer from CNBC or whatever it was, the stock show.
Yeah, Mad Money.
Mad Money. And he comes in and he's, the high energy and pushing buttons and this, that.
Right.
That was the only one to me out of the entire group that I'm like, all right, even if he's not a fan and he hasn't watched anything in maybe 30 years, seems believable.
Like, the war rooms could have been a good idea because the story that they're trying to write is that it is USA versus Fox, and it could have worked. But when you put the Fox football robot and the TV screen, like, you could have hired a bunch of random street actors to come in and play executives and celebrate when they make a draft pick. And instead, you did this.
You could have brought in executives from your own company.
Sure. Well, yeah, sure. You could have
just brought in enough folks from your offices up in Stamford, Connecticut, and go, hey, we're gonna pre-film stuff for SmackDown and Raw. When we say action, just act like you're in a meeting.
Yeah, I mean, you very well could have had. You could have had, whoever is the executive producer of Raw and the executive writers of SmackDown have their own rooms and do it that way, and it would have looked great. But you went corny. You went,
the one guy from the Raw War Room was wearing face paint like the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, that was. Oh God,
why?
Bad.
The whole concept of doing the draft just fell flat in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I thought NXT was going to be involved.
I did too.
And that went nowhere.
Well, to a very small degree, with obviously the Street Profits getting moved over to Monday Night Raw. But, just the whole thing felt forced and was completely unnecessary. Like, I was hanging out, with my girlfriend on Friday, and we were out and about, and I was kind of keeping an eye on how things were going, and I saw a tweet on Twitter where they were like, somebody was like, I can't believe we're 25 minutes into SmackDown and nothing's been said about or done about the draft yet.
No, because how they did it was they had Stephanie McMahon come out and read off the picks for both brands.
Which is fine. That's fine. Goodell comes out and does it. Adam Silver comes out and does it.
Sure.
That's fine.
Sure.
But I thought what was odd, at least for me, was she read them off without like a pause, like somebody was running and turning in the picks.
Agreed.
And I thought how they tried explaining it was like a tag team could get drafted, and obviously since SmackDown is a shorter show than Raw, they had more. Raw had more
I
picks.
know they get 3 picks to their 1, like something weird like that.
Just like the weird logic behind it was.
Yeah,
right.
And then they show the cringe-worthy war rooms, which just looks so fake. And I understand that with Fox now being involved, they wanted to make it have a
more
real,
sports feel.
real sports network type feel, and I just thought it came off so bad that there was no like real emotions. Like if they had different wrestlers in there with the War Room, that would make it some legitimacy to it. I thought it would have been okay.
I think the show has looked more cartoony since it's been on Fox.
I agree.
Which is the exact opposite approach of what Fox was originally, rumored to want.
I haven't been able to catch a SmackDown yet, so I couldn't say.
Yeah, I mean, I from what I've seen of SmackDown, when I've watched bits and pieces of it, it's looked even more 80s-ish than it has, sports.
But I think that's what they want out of it. I honestly think.
Yeah, I don't. At this point, I don't even know what Fox wants.
No. The gist I get is they want to take it back to like the throwback era of wrestling. Which, if they want to go that route with it, sure. You know what? I'll say okay. But with SmackDown, what we're used to is they were the better brand of having matches.
Right.
We're not seeing that right now. And obviously with the picks they did, and I'm just going to go skim the first picks of everybody. Obviously, the number one pick of overall was to Raw, and that was Becky Lynch.
Right.
Number 2 was Roman Reigns to SmackDown.
Yep.
3 was the OC.
Put to Raw. All 3 of them, Gallows, Anderson, and AJ Styles. 4 was Bray Wyatt. And then 5 was Drew McIntyre to Raw, which I don't really struggle with too much. No.
And then as the draft starts progressing, I thought there were some interesting picks thrown in.
Right. I mean, I'll just run through the list real quick. After that, for round 2, Randy Orton went to Raw, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, he's always been a SmackDown guy.
Yeah. Sasha Banks moved over to SmackDown. Ricochet stayed on Raw. Braun Strowman switched over to SmackDown, while Bobby Lashley stayed on Raw. Excuse me. For round 3, Alexa Bliss stayed on Raw. Lacey Evans moved over to SmackDown. Kevin Owens moved over to Raw, and I think he's trying, little side thing, I think he's trying to like make something out of this, because he had a tweet over the weekend, I think it was, where apparently he filmed a sort of interview segment with one of the folks, regarding his reaction about being drafted in the 3rd round, and apparently it didn't get shared on any of their social medias or something. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, but hey, it's an interesting story.
Well, think about how hot he's got to be too with that run that he was having on SmackDown, now to move back to Raw.
Yeah, obviously the Revival stayed on SmackDown. They're the tag team champions over there. Natalya stayed on Raw. To close out the first night, you had the Viking Raiders stay on Raw. Lucha House Party moved over to SmackDown. Nikki Cross stayed on Raw. Heavy Machinery stayed on SmackDown, and then you had the Street Profits move up from NXT to Monday Night Raw.
So obviously there was no real shakeups or surprises on this one, other than Street Profits got called up. Lacey Evans getting drafted as high as she did, I thought was real surprising.
They're up on her though.
Yeah.
But I thought what was very odd, and Pat touched upon this a little bit, all the champions on their current brands stayed put. Mm-hmm. Nobody moved.
Which, come on.
But if you want to give this a real shake-up feel,
right,
wouldn't you move a champion here and there? Or?
But they've done that for every superstar shakeup.
Yeah, I was just going to
say.
The
SmackDown, the U.S. Championship at one point was on SmackDown, and then the next superstar shakeup, it moved to Raw, and then the IC title moved from Raw to SmackDown. Like, they just flipped that for every shakeup.
But see, like, what I thought they should have done is had the champion defend, and if they lost, then they were fair game to get moved or something.
But they did. The Raw Tag Team Championships got defended by Ziggler and Rude. They lost and got moved.
Right, but like I was saying, they should have done it with every champion.
I think the problem with the championships is that if it then go back to the 06 05 draft where it was brand specific, because then it's there and
right.
you know what you're the players that you're getting. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the whole point of why the Universal title is red.
Yeah,
because it's the Raw title, and that's the whole point of the World title is that it was on SmackDown. It's like I know that it won't happen now because Fox is very specific on wanting the brand split. I just don't understand why the championship should just be uniformed. Mm. It should be one Raw championship or one WWE championship, one Intercontinental, one US, one tag team title, and one women's title, and the champion goes and challenges whoever's the number one contender.
Sure.
And that's just the way that it goes.
It would make a lot more sense to do it. But
to me, it would, because, I mean, logistically, it's just, when you break up the brands and you have that many championships, I feel like it just dilutes the pool, because there's not enough, currently, the way that things are, there's just not enough top-tier talent that can carry each show and be number one contenders for each show. Because when you look at Raw, it's like, all right, who's gonna now? Seth Rollins was just in a feud with Bray Wyatt.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you go from here now? Like, who is up tier enough to be his number one contender? Probably AJ Styles.
Well, I'm going to throw a little curveball, because there's somebody that got drafted on Monday night that I think is now going to get slowly set up for that.
Okay.
Aleister Black.
Ooh, okay.
Because there's certain wrestlers, when you break it down, I mean, we're not going to break down everybody who got moved.
Right.
But there's certain notable ones that definitely got called to Raw or SmackDown that I thought were very interesting.
Right.
I thought for Raw, and having Humberto Carrillo get called up, I mean, he's been on 205 Live. He's absolutely been killing it. The Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane, which I am fully banking they're going to set up an Asuka-Becky Lynch feud. That's got to be coming.
For sure.
That I think as soon as they get rid of them, or break that team up, that's going to happen. And I thought that with the team, or the wrestlers rather, that were drafted for Raw, they fit Paul Heyman very well.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all Paul Heyman guys and girls.
Sure.
Like, that's that brand is definitely catered to him. When you take a look at SmackDown, though, I mean, they have a lot of names, a lot of quality talent on their roster, but it's also not really jumping out too much of like a shakeup per se. I mean, the only one that really kind of seemed like they got moved over was The Miz, who's been on Raw forever, and Ziggler and Rude, but I mean, that's really not moving the needle.
They've moved The Miz like a hot potato. You know, he'll be on one brand for a year, and then come the next shakeup, he's on the other brand for a year, and then they toss him back.
But I think that's what, it goes to what you're saying, though, that SmackDown's really always been kind of the wrestling brand. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what it was always catered as when the original split happened, then the next split that they did, and now this, it's almost, the opposite. Raw is going to be the wrestling heavy show, and then SmackDown's going to be the more of the segment show, mean, and Raw's still going to have its segment because it's 3 hours long, but I mean, the feud that you talked about, with the potential of Aleister Black and Seth Rollins, I mean, has me absolutely signed up for that because it would be tremendous. Aleister Black is awesome. He can go in the ring,
and he's believable. He's a Heyman character,
and he's a Heyman type guy. So I mean, it works really well. Him as the Universal Champion, I don't necessarily see it working in Vince's eyes, but I like the idea of it.
I think that if it was going to work, I mean, Vince might be more open to it because Paul has definitely made magic happen with people that he's pushed that Vince has never really thought could do it.
I mean, Eddie Guerrero goes to mind right away.
Punk.
Yep.
It's certain wrestlers when they get the Heyman rub, so to speak, they really get to be elevated. And I think looking at this roster, I mean, Aleister Black is the first name that jumped out at me. I said, you know what? Perfect sense. And especially there's a lot of free agents that are technically still out there.
Which, how that works, though, is so weird.
Right. So the list I pulled off of NoDQ.com, this is their list of, who are quote-unquote free agents, but there's some missing names that, didn't get drafted and aren't listed on here. They have AOP, Matt Hardy, Cesaro, The Iconics, Luke Harper, Fire and Desire, Drake Maverick, Dana Brooke, Hawkins and Ryder, Mojo Rawley, No Way Jose, and Sarah Logan listed. But like I said, there's some obvious names on there that if you know anything and have been watching wrestling the last couple of months or years, are missing on that. Okay, we listed Matt Hardy. Jeff Hardy's not listed there. Ruby Riot's not listed there. So there's some obvious other ones.
There's some definitely names out there that I think they can plug in shows. It just depends on what they want to keep as a surprise. Because this was the one that I thought some teams or some wrestlers that were named, I thought was kind of surprising over some that weren't. I mean, the Lucha House Party getting drafted, I thought was kind of surprising.
So weird.
It's nothing against them. I think they're quality wrestlers. I just think for the amount of 205 live talent that was drafted, I thought was kind of interesting to a degree, just because you don't really think of them too much other than just what they do on their own show.
Right.
And for the Luchas, unfortunately, all they've been doing is doing the jobs on the shows. I mean, they haven't really had title runs or anything like that. And it's a shame, in my opinion, because, Kalisto, Metalik, and Lince Dorado have always put on great shows.
Somebody's got to lose.
So, somebody always has to. So, obviously, seeing this, I think they've left the door open for making some changes happen. And with the new regimes taking over this week, we'll see the full rosters on each show now.
Right.
Yeah, I think that will be probably the most telling thing. Obviously, Raw still had the draft last night, so, SmackDown will kind of be the first show that we see with its roster and kind of, using everything, so that will be interesting to see, the direction and path that they take because, with Brock being the champion, obviously they're setting him up with Cain Velasquez for
Crown Royal.
Crown Royal. So, it'll be interesting to see the direction Crown Jewel.
It's like Crown Royal's a drink.
Sure.
I will be probably having
what you're thinking about right now, yeah. So, obviously that path is already set up, so it's going to be interesting to see, who fits in there. You obviously saw how Brock was treated when he had the Raw Championship, and it makes for a difficult show because the champion's not there.
Yeah.
Well, how they're booking that pay-per-view, too, which is happening Halloween, I believe, here in the States.
Yeah,
Halloween
the 31st,
at 1 in the afternoon Eastern.
Let's break that down quick because, the shows weren't really anything too much to write home about. No. I know the Lashley-Lana segment was kind of awkward. And
how did that make it on TV before 10 o'clock?
And Seth burning down the Firefly Funhouse.
Yeah, which I'm now questioning, and I'm going to kind of touch upon this, which I'm hoping I'm wrong about this theory. But the three main events for Crown Jewel is Tyson Fury versus Braun Strowman.
Yep.
Tyson Fury, linear boxing champion, getting ready for his rematch against Deontay Wilder. I'm fearing that he's going to run through Braun, and that's going to be a squash.
R.I.P. Braun.
Yeah, which
again.
Yeah,
R.I.P. Braun for a lot of money, reportedly.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen,
a lot of money.
He's not going to not get paid.
Right. Then you have Bray Wyatt versus Seth Rollins in a Falls Count Anywhere match, which had better not end in a count out. I saw that Ryan sat and tweeted that out, and I fully agree with that too. But with what they did with his character now, you burned the Firefly Funhouse down.
Right.
Was that a sense that Vince maybe has already soured on the gimmick?
No, the thing I reportedly read was that it was them writing it out because Fox might not have been so high on the angle.
That's what I'm thinking, that they're already killing the new angle of Bray Wyatt.
Well, I mean, that's what's so weird, and why the draft and the split and everything and going with these matches going into, that show is just so odd, because it's like he's on SmackDown, Seth is on Raw. You figure that, you would have wrapped everything up, at Hell in the Cell. Why would you want to do it again? Why would you want to touch on it? It just didn't work the first time. Doing a no DQ is not going to make it any better, or it Falls Count Anywhere. My guess is it probably finishes in the Firefly Funhouse,
which is now left in ashes.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think they'll make some magic and make a fire pit and some ashes, and that's where the match ends.
And didn't anybody question how did Seth find the way to the Firefly Funhouse?
Well, he just tweeted that he followed him there, that he led him there. So, I mean, and that's a weird thing, too. What are they going to do with Seth's character? All right, so now after this whole thing and he moves on to Raw, where does Seth go from here?
I think Seth turns heel.
I
have a weird feeling that the Fiend is going to be like the Venom symbiote, and that somehow just corrupts Seth and makes Seth evil.
Well, I mean, listen,
goes to heel.
He and Randy Orton now have something in common in burning down buildings that are owned by Bray Wyatt.
I mean, listen, if that turns Seth into like a monster heel, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm not in for the chicken shit heel again.
I
They've
agree
done
with you.
that business, and it's not good.
I mean, you think about it, though. They kind of need a big heel on Raw now because, okay, Braun Strowman's gone. You can't kind of do the float in between thing like you did with him. Bobby Lashley's tied up with his whole god-awful thing.
Next.
Brock Lesnar's gone, so you can't have him come out attacking people for no reason. So you need a heel.
Oh, I know who. The OC.
Well,
Ken's fave.
Yeah.
Well, my fave, formerly known as Bullet Club, which I do have to...
say my name.
Yeah. No, I will not say... No. But I will say this. It would be nice to see AJ get pushed to be the top heel and be the top faction. They need more people, though.
I think if it's AJ Styles as like an actual, not the jokester that we've seen the last few weeks on, both shows, and he's actually a full-blown, not funny heel, not comedy heel, but a heel with, the Luke with Gallows and Anderson. I think that will work. But yeah, if it's more comedy bits, then I don't want Seth involved with that. And then where do you go?
Well, that's why I say you're ultimately going to have him versus Aleister Black. And I think that's where they're going to push Seth as a heel.
Well, yeah, because Aleister Black works as a face, for sure.
Because I'm going to say Bray Wyatt will corrupt him. And this will be like how they kind of write off the gimmick. Which, don't get me wrong, I love the Fiend gimmick. I just think that when they burned the house down, that I was like, all right, they're already saying they're transitioning. Which I don't want them to do.
But you got to do something else with him other than have him appear on TV in a pre-recorded segment 52 weeks a year.
Oh, no, I grant you.
He's had 2 matches, and all he's done is run out, attack veterans, and run back.
Well, it's like I said, though, I get the Firefly Funhouse, but how does it translate to the Fiend? And I think that's kind of the disconnect that's been missing. I mean, at least for Finn Balor, when he's the demon, they talk about how he segues into that character. So it kind of makes sense in a way. Like, the Fiend was just... It was randomness. It was, okay, this is how he comes out and wrestles, but they never told the story why he comes out to wrestle that way, which I think is what missed, because if it would have been like, hey, the Firefly Funhouse, but, I send the Fiend to do my bidding, like something like that, then it would have fit, but you never got that explanation, and it missed.
No, we definitely didn't. So obviously, I think that feud ends at Crown Jewel.
It has to end because he's on SmackDown.
Yeah, and then the big news to crown that out, though, no pun intended.
Hey,
Brock Lesnar versus Cain Velasquez, who's now signed a multi-year deal,
big money
deal to come to WWE.
Yep.
Wonder what his schedule is going to be like.
I think he's actually going to be wrestling.
Well, I heard that he's holding off knee surgery though, so he can do the Crown Jewel. And then kind of go from there?
Yeah, because I think that whatever happens there, if it's like a no DQ, or if it's a DQ or some kind of weird finish, then Kane can get written off, get his knee surgery, come back, and be a absolute monster. Or if he's going to be waiting for possibly Daniel Cormier to get done with the UFC and come join him, and then maybe that's something that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from what we said and what we've talked about. Go out and look for Cain Velasquez's stuff on Twitter. It's all over the web. He can go in the ring, so I think it's going to be a ton of fun.
He can do moves that a man his size should not be able to do.
Yeah, and I think it will be very interesting to see. Really outside of Braun, when's the last time Brock's really faced a guy in a WWE ring of similar size to him?
Samoa Joe, maybe.
Well, I mean, that's similar, weight, but not stature.
I'm just thinking, just who has physically looked like they can actually fight with Brock.
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see, for so long now we've been so used to, Suplex City and all that stuff. It's going to be very interesting to see him in the ring with somebody that, it's not going to be believable that he's just giving him 17 German suplexes.
I'll say, he's going to go up to a guy who you can't exactly German suplex.
And it will be interesting to see Kane work with him, because Kane, on the flip side, hasn't worked with a guy of Brock's style. So it's going to be interesting to see where they meet in the middle and how that match presents itself.
Yeah, it's going to be something we're watching. I mean, obviously, to sum this segment up, though, with the WWE draft, there's now a lot of moving parts that are established. There's some that we don't know yet. There's obviously Crown Jewel is going to be where everything is kind of set in stone, so to speak, of where the directions are going to be going for each character. You would think. I think Bray Wyatt is going to go through transition. Whatever happens with Brock and Kane is going to be something. I fear Braun is now going to get buried because of the whole Tyson Fury thing. God. So where they're going from here is going to be must-see TV, good or bad. But the direction that Raw is in, I think they won the draft. I think that their roster is more geared towards Paul Heyman. I'm not saying it's going to be ECW 2.0 or 3.0 technically, but...
So New Jack's not coming out?
Oh, if only. If only.
I think you're right. I think Raw won it, and I think it's going to be a very solid show moving forward once they get players into roles.
Yes. Yeah. So obviously they're going to have a lot of work cut out for them moving ahead, but I think they took steps in the right direction. SmackDown's a little more in flux. Obviously, Eric Bischoff's out the door. Bruce Pritchard took over.
In 1 month?
Yeah.
30 days,
so
Eric Bischoff.
I expect to hear a little bit more about that in the upcoming days. But wherever the SmackDown goes, they do have the star power, so to speak, so they're going to be in good shape either way. But hit us up on the hashtag ODPH. What is your thoughts about the WWE draft? Who won, who lost, and where do you think the superstars are going to break out, and which ones do you think are going to fall to the wayside? Definitely want to know. Hit us up. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
On a podcast. Sorry. On a podcast.
Anyway, I'm going to start closing up the One Movie Punch secret volcano lair, and we'll meet you back at home.
With a secret volcano lair. Wait, volcano lair? Really? With a secret volcano lair, one podcast host just can't seem to get a break. This October.
Oh, what happened?
Joseph is forced to survive by any means possible.
Who keeps a parking lot full of wood chippers?
In a serial audio drama of adventures.
Blood. Blood everywhere. Fountains and fountains of blood.
That can only be called Reign of Terror 2019. Join us in October 2019 for 31 straight days of horror movie reviews and interviews featuring Joseph, the One Movie Punch crew, 17 podcast guest reviewers, special guests, and me, your narrator, Shane Hyde. Don't miss Reign of Terror 2019.
Wait, does this mean I missed Joker? No.
2, 3, 4.
Hey, this is Johnny Moose from Excite Wrestling, and you're listening to the ODPH. I didn't mess it up. I thought I would. Right now, back to the guys.
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pat, start us off with that local minute.
Yeah, of course, talking local minute, we got to talk a little Binghamton Devils hockey. Yes, that's right. They are back. The games last week, they had 2 games against the Bellevue Senators. The game on Friday, they lost by the final score of 2-1. And then on their game on Saturday, they lost in overtime by a final score of 5-4. Looking ahead to their games this week, they are on the road still. They have a game this Wednesday at 7:05 against the Penguins, and then Friday they have a game at 7:05 against the Phantoms. They do not, although they do return home on Saturday, October 19th, 7:05 p.m. against the Wolfpack.
That stadium is going to be empty, though, because on October 19th, the Binghamton Bulldogs kick off their basketball season.
Baby.
Ooh.
They play at 7:05 against the Elite Kings.
Okay.
They just had their red and white scrimmage, so, I think they're going to be announcing the roster at some point here. I mean, I don't think things were finalized, so I kind of, silence out of that with who's going to be making the roster and everything. But the most interesting thing is small ball is in ball because they are tiny.
Yeah, it's going to be very guard heavy.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Monty Anderson moved on to Europe. He's going to be playing overseas this year. Congrats to him. Big departure, though, for the Bulldogs. A lights-out three-point shooter. Going to be tough, a difficult loss for them to fill that void because, when he was hot from 3, that kid was a monster.
Yeah, it was definitely a crushing blow to the Bulldogs. But Bulldog season is in full effect, like you touched upon, Coach. And obviously, this is going to be a tough challenge for them because they don't have the height that they usually do on the lineup, as we've seen thus far. So, this could be subject to change.
And it was last year with injuries and everything else. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, obviously, this is going to be a huge game against the Elite Kings of Queens, which is, like our coach touched upon, Saturday, October 15th, St. Pat's Gym. BinghamtonBulldogs.com for more information, and for more information on the AHL, Binghamton Devils, BinghamtonDevils.com.
Mm-hmm.
So let's round those bases before we take it home, shall we?
Sure. I'm going to start over with me, talking a little postseason baseball because it is in full swing. Looking at the American League Championship Series, you have the New York Yankees going up against the Houston Astros. That series is tied 1 game apiece. The Yankees took game 1. Houston fought back and took game 2. They are currently playing right now as we record, where the Yankees are currently down 3-0 in the top of the 7th inning, so things not looking good. However, the series that's been absolutely wild to me to see is got to be over in the National League Championship Series, where you have the St. Louis Cardinals going up against the Washington Nationals. Washington making it to the championship series for the first time since they've been back in Washington. And funnily enough, Bryce Harper might have predicted the future when he mistakenly in the offseason said, we want to bring a championship back to Washington because, hey, they're 1 game away from making it to the World Series.
Washington is just buzzsawing through St. Louis with their pitching.
Yeah, no, they're just buzzsawing through them. Like you said, they had a game last night on Monday night where they defeated the St. Louis Cardinals by a final score of 8-1. Steven Strasburg pitching a masterful performance, striking out 12. Game 4 is tonight as we record on Tuesday. It is at 8:05 Eastern on TBS, where it is Dakota Hudson going up against Corbin. Must-win scenario for the St. Louis Cardinals. Can they win it? Can they stave off elimination? Who's to say? You never know.
This has been an interesting series to watch. Washington getting there, I think, would be absolutely bonkers.
It'd be wild.
It'd be bonkers.
Wild.
And to flip the coin, though, Houston and the Yankees has been a tough series. Pat, let me ask you this on air.
Uh-huh.
What did you think of Game 2's decision about pulling Paxton, and obviously that kind of set up for the next home run that got hit that kind of tipped the game in Houston's favor?
You had to. He was tipping pitches.
Yeah.
He was tipping pitches, and I forget who it was, but there was a Bleacher Report app notified me of there was a video of one of the Astros players making it to first base, looking at his dugout, and mouthing clear as day when you put the video in slow motion, glove, and then making some sort of signal to the dugout that, hey, he's tipping his pitches again, which Paxton has done in the past.
It was a crucial moment in the game, and Boone tried doing what he could do, and obviously led to a game-changing home run that Houston and the Yankees are going to scrap. It's not going to be an easy series by any means.
It's going to be. Not being the baseball guy, even I've been paying attention to this because of, from last year to this year, it's just going to be a knock 'em, drag 'em, sock 'em out, type series.
And it absolutely has. When the Yankees beat Zach Greinke in the first game, that was huge.
Oh, massive.
They needed to get at least one away from Houston. Going against Justin Verlander. Verlander is drinking something in the fountain of youth, and he is still pitching at a high level at his age. And the Yankees, like I said, when you get up a run on them, that's when you have to capitalize. And they gave up a very crucial home run.
Oh, yeah.
And going in extra innings, you knew it was going to be tough. But when they got to the 7th inning and they had 0 outs and they had runners on first and second, couldn't move anybody over, it was a tough break for them. So, obviously, that game, you knew something was going to happen, and it went right in Houston's favor.
Yeah.
And then looking at Game 3, Garrett Cole coming to the Bronx. What can you say? Garrett's pitching lights out.
He's a master.
Yeah, Severino did what he could, but he gave a big home run to Altuve.
Right, but the thing with Severino is, he had the injury earlier in the season. This is only like his 4th or 5th start. So whereas, these other pitchers, and this isn't, making excuses for Severino. You're in the majors. You're supposed to be the ace of the staff. You're supposed to be, their best pitcher. But his pitching arm is essentially in like April or even spring training. He didn't get spring training to have those bad games and work out the kinks and then work through the season and work through all that. He's at the beginning of the year where these guys are like weathered and conditioned and ready to go.
Yeah, so obviously they got to make some quick adjustments in a hurry. If they go down 2-1 tonight, if the score holds up as it is right now, Game 4 is a must-win.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't afford to go down to Houston.
No.
2 games where you have Greinke coming back and you have Verlander and Cole waiting.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not.
You got to get one.
That's not going to happen. So, obviously, we will be talking and tweeting about this all through the series. Fun baseball time in October, man. You can't go wrong with that. Coach, what do you have for your base this week?
I have that it's the NFL trade deadline, and players are being moved already. The Rams have traded, an interesting trade at that. The Rams have traded Pro Bowl cornerback Peters to the Ravens for a later round pick, which is an interesting trade given the fact that the Rams defensively have not looked great. So trading, an elite corner like that is an interesting move. And the Cleveland Browns traded their starting center today as well. So, obviously the NFL can be a little more quiet as far as the trades go. So it's always an interesting thing to see players move in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. You don't hear too many trades happening with the NFL that much. Obviously you hear about somebody getting released and picked up, but at this stage of the season, you don't really hear about a lot of moves. So this is kind of interesting that we're actually hearing some.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Obviously it's going to be quiet. You're not going to, you're not going to hear, superstar Y get traded right now because most of those trades happen more towards the offseason. But there will be some smaller moves that might make for big season pushes.
Oh,
yeah, obviously teams are getting ready to make a playoff push. Almost halfway through the season, so definitely you're going to see some teams gearing up, whether it's somebody off the practice squad or somebody off waivers. You're going to see teams lining up their rosters. Trade deadline is no different, so definitely something to watch moving forward. So for mine, I have 2 for the bases. Now, one, we have been talking wrestling on the show, and the feedback has been great, so we thank everybody that's been digging the Running the Rope segment. We also have to give a quick shout-out to 3 Fat Nerds. Now, they have decided to cancel their weekly 3 Fat Nerds on Wrestling show. They're going to be doing 2 3FN shows, so 3FN flagship show and 3FN weekend, so they're still going to that. But what we've announced on the show, or was announced rather, is Rich from 3FN and I are teaming up to do a monthly wrestling podcast.
Okay.
Now it's going to be Rich, myself, Lou from Pint of Comics, which if you follow our Twitters during wrestling shows, Lou and I are going back and forth the entire time. And we are going to have also multiple guests coming on, do it once a month, just talk everything in the world of wrestling. The start date will be in November. We don't have an official date or name, but that is going to be coming down on the hashtag 607 Podcast Network. So whether we start at the 8122 Production Studios or we do it here, we're going to start doing that. We're going to get some people involved and just talk pro wrestling because, like I said, the segments we do here have been great, but we're just going to extend it to a 1 full show per month with everybody. So stay tuned to 8122productions.com for more information, and obviously OchoDuroParlayHour.com for more information on that when that comes out in November, because that's going to be a big deal when that happens. And let me round the base with some UFC talk, because we haven't talked about that in a little bit. To recap the fight card that happened this past weekend, Fight Night 161, there was some solid fights.
Okay.
One we have to give a notable shout out to, and that's to Nico Price, who follows the ODPH. Whoa. Shout out to Nico, who won with one of the most devastating up kicks.
Say, when's the last time you saw that one?
Not in a long time.
It's been a while.
I was trying to think of the last time might have been I think Nate Diaz. I'm not. Somebody hit me up on Twitter. It was something.
It would be a Diaz brother.
But Nico scraps and he knocked out James Vick in the first round with that up kick. It looked absolutely brutal. So shout out to him. ODPH Karma worked there. So definitely shout outs. Cub Swanson defeated Con Gracie in a highly contested decision He got the nod for it. It was a back-and-forth battle. Cub pulled it out. And in the main event, Joanna Jędrzejczyk defeated Michelle Watterson by unanimous decision. Jędrzejczyk is coming for that belt for the strawweight title. So get ready for that. There is a fight card this weekend in Boston, and I only want to touch upon 2 fights that are happening. One is the co-main event, and it's a rematch between one Yair Rodriguez and one Jeremy Stevens.
Ooh.
Now, Pat, do you know why that's relevant?
I'm struggling to recall it.
Remember the melee in Mexico?
Yes.
This is the rematch.
Oh, Lord.
The eye scratch that Jeremy Stevens suffered is now healed. There is bad blood galore for this fight.
Oh, Lord.
Coach, I know you don't have a pick in this, but I'm going to tell you right now.
Pray for Yair.
Pray for Yair.
All right.
Jeremy Stevens is going to be a man possessed.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to piss off Jeremy Stevens. Even I know that.
Jeremy Stevens is a man who needs no motivation. And when you give man said motivation, it is like a freight train coming downhill. Yair Rodriguez gave him enough motivation for maybe 3 lifetimes when he alleged that Stevens faked his eye injury.
Yeah, that was enough to set him off. They almost got into it in the hotel. This is going to be a fun fight, and as long as this doesn't get stopped by a damn eye poke, I am predicting Jeremy Stevens' second-round knockout.
To quote Terrell Owens, get your popcorn ready.
This is going to be absolutely brutal.
I mean, if it doesn't end in the first, it is 1,000% going to end in the second.
Yeah, I do not see this going to decision by any means. Like, some crazy nonsense is going to happen in this one. The main event, though, is Dominic Reyes versus Chris Weidman in a light heavyweight title fight. It's not a holiday weekend, so I am taking Dominic Reyes. Because Chris Weidman is usually even money fighting on July 4th weekend, so... But him stepping up to light heavyweight, I don't know what to expect, really. Reyes is a hot prospect name. I don't know if he's ready for John Jones yet. I think there's only one man that we are rooting for here at the ODPH to fight John, and that is Johnny Walker.
Let's go.
Yes. So this one, I think Reyes is going to win by decision. It should be an interesting fight. I am rooting for Chris Weidman. I always do, but him stepping up to 205, I think is going to be a tough task for him fighting Reyes. So more information on that. It's going to be on ESPN Plus this weekend, so definitely check that out wherever you check out your UFC fights. And speaking of ESPN, they just broke a story saying the California State Athletic Commission votes to cancel fights if fighters come in over 15% above the contracted weight on fight day.
Oof.
Thoughts around the panel on this one?
I can't say I'm surprised. Doesn't New York do something similar where it's like they have a certain like pounds you can be within on either side of the weight you're supposed to be at, but if you're not in that like range, the fight's canceled. So okay, like it's your job to be at weight and fight these guys, so you have no excuse.
No, I fully agree on that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, not only that, just from the standpoint of, it can be very dangerous with those cuts as you wait for weigh-in. So I mean, I'm all for it. I think it's safer for the fighters. At the same time, I mean, this, like you said, Pat, this is their job. So if you can't come in on weight, and I think Dana White was famous for saying that during one of the Tough Enoughs, if you can't make weight and that's your job going into a fight, then you don't deserve to fight.
Oh, I agree. I mean, we've had Vince Ciatoli on, the common man from Crow's Nest MMA, and he's talked about that too. And even King of Lyle, Luke Vizengard. I mean, they said your job is to make weight. It's a tough job, but you have to make weight when you're a professional fighter. So obviously, I stand by this rule, and I think that you definitely have to abide by that. So that being said, let us go into locks and leaps, and I will kick us off because usually I'm tying everybody. So I want to kick this off, so if anybody else is copying me, we can definitely say this. My lock this week, I am taking those L.A. Rams against the Falcons. The Falcons The Falcons are a joke.
I mean, you're not taking your Buffalo Bills against the Miami Dolphins, who are currently favored by 17 points.
See, here's the thing. I think the Bills are going to win. I just worry they're not going to cover the spread because I think it's one of those teams that, Miami, you've heard, I've said, is not even a college team. They're below that right now. I think they're awful. And I've been very vocal about my hatred for Miami about this. I'm sorry. I think the Bills might play down to their opponent, but they'll still get the win. I just think it's going to be a lot closer than 17 points. I hope it's a blowout. I hope it's like 41-3. But for this competition for locks and leaps, I'm definitely taking the Rams. Like I said, the Falcons don't scare me at all. I think this should be a blowout in their own right, maybe a 10-point win. So I know the point spread is currently 3. And for my leap, maybe I'm just feeling sympathetic for the Lions. They are currently underdogs by 1.5 to Minnesota. And they're home. I'm thinking maybe some home cooking to bounce back after that atrocious and egregious game in Lambeau Field. I am taking the Lions on this one.
Okay.
So, Pad, what you got?
Well, for my lock, I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers against the Oakland Raiders. Currently, Green Bay is favored by 6 points. Green Bay 5-1. at home game for them, a little home cooking. I think they're going to be able to do that one and win that game. For my leap, I'm looking at the New Orleans Saints and Chicago Bears game, where currently Chicago is favored by 3 points. Bears 3-2. Mitchell Trubisky might play, might not. Last I'd read, he did practice on Monday, so who's to say? We'll have to wait until close to game time. But we'll talk about hot hand the first segment and everything else. Bridgewater's playing good, and 5-1 defense is really stepping up. So I think the Saints are going to be able to pull this one off.
Coach, your lock and leap.
My lock is the G-Men.
Oh, boy.
Going against the Cardinals.
Uh-oh.
West to East Coast, 1 o'clock game. Things are pointing in my favor. 3-point favorites right now, the Giants are. I definitely think that if they cover, it's going to be like a 4-point win. It's not going to be a blowout. Arizona's defense is garbage. The Giants' defense is garbage. Danny Dimes is on fire. Kyle Murray's playing well. It's going to be a shootout. I like it.
Now, I was watching a few different sports shows this week, and they were actually saying, who would you rather have, Danny Dimes or Kyler Murray?
That's tough.
Now, I'm asking
That's
you.
tough. I mean, you're asking me.
Room.
Listen, I mean, Danny Dimes almost went in and did the only thing that only one other quarterback's been able to do, and that's Eli Manning, and almost beat the Patriots. So I'm going to ride Danny Dimes till I die.
All right. You heard it here first, folks.
And then my leap, I had it, and then I lost it. Give me a second. My leap is going to be...
I apologize. It's me talking Danny Dimes.
You got me. You got me so distracted with that. My leap is going to be the Chargers going into Tennessee at a 4:05 game. I'm implementing a strategy that I heard. Anytime Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans are the favorite, you go the opposite way and you take the underdog. So I'm taking the Chargers. They're 2-point underdogs right now. I like it. I like the Chargers right now.
To quote the Terminator, goal, Chargers, goal.
I mean, listen, they played very bad on Sunday night, leaving a very bad taste in their mouth. They're away from their hometown, which I guess was Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Somehow Pittsburgh upped and moved to Los Angeles magically overnight.
Science.
Yeah, science, right. So I'm liking the Chargers away from home. Go Chargers, go.
Let's be honest. The Chargers' home field is San Diego and Qualcomm Field.
Their home field is anywhere but Los Angeles right now.
I'm sorry. At least I think that's the name of the stadium. It's San Diego. Let's get it right. And they need the powder blues, and they need to pull some magic off. It's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a lot. The point spread, I think, is fitting.
Sure. Well, that's why I like it because, I mean, Tennessee right now in flux, Mariota, Tannehill, what are they going to do?
No, Tannehill
They
got
named Tannehill a starter. All right,
that's
so perfect.
What I thought.
Give me more of the Chargers then if Tannehill's going to be the favorite. I think Melvin Gordon was able to kind of get some things going. Philip Rivers talking trash, dragging kids to the sideline, putting them in timeout, saying you can't do this. I like it. I like it.
Oh, it's going to be a fun game on Sunday. It's going to be a lot of fun games this week. Way better than last week.
Listen, if the Giants lose after I called them a favorite again, I'm going to be upset, and I'll never pick them again because I would be a walking jinx.
Well, we're going to see if the coach effect is in full effect.
Oh, boy. Very nervous.
Giants fans, you know who to blame if they lose.
Listen, hey, Saquon possibly back, maybe back. I don't know. Practicing, possibly. I've got fingers crossed. If he's back, I definitely like the Giants.
We might have to tweet this show to him and see if he actually listens again. So,
hey,
I mean, we motivated him last time, so we'll have to see
listen,
what happens.
I mean, if the ankle's not there, hold him out. But if he's back, I mean, Evan Ingram might come back. So they've got some things working back. I mean, literally, they played against the Patriots with a practice squad. So if they have a full roster, I don't know. Sky's the limit.
Pad, your thoughts on that?
Nothing.
Okay.
He can't. It's because it's the truth. I mean, they had 7 players out, Pad. You can't. What can you say? I mean,
it's a fair statement.
I was at the theaters watching Joker, and I didn't see most of the game. So,
well, there you go. I'll tell you that when you have Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, Saquon Barkley, Wayne Galeman, and a who's who of everybody else out, it's going to make for any tough day for any team.
It definitely will. So, obviously, a lot of action going to happen this Sunday. We'll have to see if we're right or wrong. Definitely follow all that action on OchoDuroParlayHour.com and our Facebook page, which will have the Locks and Leaps rankings up later this week. So, get ready for that.
It's not good for me. I know that much.
No, Rich from 3FN is currently the leader, but Pat and I are right on his heels. Ron is catching up, too.
All right, but am I dead last right now? Okay.
No,
All right.
Diesel is last.
Yes.
Diesel.
It's been a rough go.
Yeah.
It's been a rough go for me, people.
Yeah.
I mean, I've not. Thank God that I don't actually gamble because I would be in some debt.
Yeah, we would have to start like an extreme like Patreon account.
Oh yeah, like I would have to be like hiding from a bookie, telling them my arm's broken or something. Like it'd be Bad News Bears.
It would be Coach Duffy on assignment for the rest of the year as he's getting tracked down.
Yeah, because they'd be dead. They'd know where I am.
Exactly. The music you heard on this episode is that of Fair City Fire. You can find their information on the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour website, OchoDuroParlayHour.com. I'm too worked up because I'm thinking Coach is like going to be going on the run after the show.
I'm going to be hiding underneath the table doing the show.
Right, but if you go
calling in remotely.
Yeah, if you go to the ODPH website, you can find links to all the music you hear on the show. Hashtag 607 Podcast, friends of the show, parlay points, all the blogs, everything that you need that is ODPH is at OchoDuroParlayHour.com. That's all we got for this week. For your coach, my coach, the coach, before he goes on the run, Coach Duffy.
Good night and don't gamble.
For Padawanche.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH podcast. Go Bills. We'll see you next time.